This video is about building an effective presentation outline for the LUT course. We're going to talk about what the goals are for the presentation outline, what you'd like to accomplish with writing an outline, and how to build an outline effectively and efficiently for the LUT course. First, an analogy. Think of your outline as a roadmap for an effective presentation. Imagine this scenario. You're in your hometown walking along the street and someone comes up to you and asks you how to get to a popular destination. Well, how would you tell them in a way so that they would remember once they walked away from you? It's essentially the same thing in a public speaking context. We want your audience to remember your argument when they walk away. So there are certain components that need to be built into your presentation to make it relevant, interesting, and most importantly, memorable for the audience. So this roadmap is not only a way for you to organize yourself as a speaker, but it's very important to help the audience member listen and remember your argument. Now you have a very good tool at your disposal in order to help build your roadmap for your presentation. In the learning resource MindEdge, there's a module 1.7.1 with an example outline. Here's a screenshot of it. Use this outline as a template. You can access it through the course of study, through preparing for presentation lesson. And if you navigate to this page, you'll see that organizationally, everything is very clearly labeled, all of your thoughts are articulated in full sentences, and everything looks well structured on the page. You want to aim for that in your own presentation outline. So check this module out, 1.7.1, and use it as a template to guide your own work. Now let's talk about each component part. Just like any other type of research project, there's an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. In the introduction of your presentation outline, the first thing that you want to do is greet the audience with an attention-getting hook. Now this can be an interesting statistic, a fact, or a quote that you found from your research, or perhaps you'd like to ask a question of the audience in order to grab their attention. Be creative with this, and remember to cite any researched information with an in-text citation. After you've grabbed the audience's attention, you want to state your argument in its entirety, and this is your thesis statement. Here's a template for a thesis that we suggest. It starts with, research suggests, then you state your major claim, because, for this reason and that reason. These are your 2 or 3 specific main points of discussion for your presentation. And that's it. That in its entirety is exactly what you plan to talk about in elaborating on in your argument with the audience. This is your roadmap. So the thesis statement is really a very important part of your introduction. After your thesis, you're going to tell your audience a little bit more about how you're going to develop your argument, and that's what's called the main point preview. You will list for your audience members the exact steps on this roadmap of where you're going to take them from point A to point B in your argument. So that's the introduction. Next, the body. The body discusses all of the research details of your main points. It's very important to include an APA formatted in-text citation for every point and subpoint of information in your main point outline. Everything points back to your research. You want to give the audience a good idea of where they're going along the way on this roadmap, so you want to articulate your ideas completely and fully in full sentences. But it's not necessarily a script of your entire presentation. Once you get to the presentation delivery, you're going to add in transitions, perhaps summarize ideas for the audience, or even add in an example or 2. But for the purposes of the presentation outline in its written form, you want to focus on those public landmarks, to use the roadmap analogy, that come from your research. So the main point discussion in the body of the outline should all point back to published information and the ways in which you're going to validate your claims through your research. Finally, the conclusion. Once you've told the audience where you're going, and you've talked them through it in the main point discussion, then it's time to tell them where you've been, and this is the conclusion. First, you'll restate your thesis, summarize your main points, and then end with an effective closing strategy. I like to think of this as answering the so what question of your presentation. This can be a call to action, a question for further consideration for the audience, or any creative way to wrap up the argument and keep the audience thinking about what it is that you told them about today. Remember, keep it memorable. Now, it may seem like you're repeating yourself throughout the presentation, and that's okay. This is what's called building selective redundancy in your presentation outline, and that's what you want. You want your audience to remember the argument, and one of the ways we help each other remember along the way is to repeat important information and emphasize main ideas that we'd like them to be able to recall at a later time. And so that's why we ask you to state your thesis, but then also preview your main points, and then restate the thesis at the end, but also summarize the main points of discussion. All of this repetition builds for a stronger, more memorable argument. So remember to include them in your presentation outline. Best of luck in writing your outlines. Please feel free to contact us with any questions along the way. You can email us at com@wgu.edu or call us at extension 1756. We're always happy to hear from you.